All right, Alex, on to part 2 here of lesson 3.2 video. We're looking here at slide 10 here at this satellite image showing the northern part of the Nile River, Egypt. We've talked about the yellow areas being desert, the green areas being vegetation. Green equals vegetation, yellow desert. And where do you think most people live in this area? So go ahead and talk with your partner about that one, about what a delta is. Might need to look that up if you're not familiar with that term. And then why deltas are so important. So go ahead and pause the video and go ahead and write these three down and go ahead and have that conversation with your turn and talk partner. All right, we're back, Alex, for the first question here. Hopefully you guys have talked about the fact that most people are going to live along this fertile region of the Nile here. And that is, in fact, where most people in this northern Egyptian Nile River Valley area live, is in the greener parts here. In addition to that, a delta. A delta is this low-lying watery area formed at the mouth of a river. A mouth is where the water flows out. Again, the Nile River does flow north. It flows south to north. So it dumps out here into the Mediterranean Sea. So this triangle shape right here is a delta. Deltas are really important because lots of soil is deposited by the river, and this can be a really good farming area. Although they do have a lot of flooding too, where it's a low-lying area, so they do experience that and have to deal with flooding. Deltas are full of both plant and animal life and are rich resource areas and have attracted human settlement for many, many millennia. So there is our deltas and why they're important. So let's go on to slide 11. So slide 11 here, go ahead and stop and jot in your notes. What civilization is shown here on slide 11? And how do you know what it is? And then go ahead and just continue on with your turn and talk. What geographic features might have been prevented this river valley from spreading northwest? Okay, so this way into this region. And then how about southeast? So this direction. So go ahead and talk to your partner and jot those ideas down, and then we'll be back. So go ahead and pause the video now, do the stop and jot, and turn and talk in your notes. Okay, we're back, and I think we've probably figured out this is ancient India, the Indus River Valley civilization, as noted by the key down here. On the geographic features, hopefully you guys noted that we have a mountain range here that's going to prevent the Indus River Valley region from going to the northwest. And what was down here? None other than a desert. So a desert's going to block this civilization from going this way. So that is why the Indus River Valley civilization was concentrated into this Indus River Valley right here. All right, so let's go ahead on to the next slide, slide 12. Now let's talk about what civilization is on your slide 12 map. What modern country developed out of this civilization over many centuries. I also want you to look at the rivers in the middle. Okay, so rivers in the middle. Why do you think civilization didn't develop along one of these rivers here? And turn and talk to your partner, and I want you guys to make your best guess on this, why it was the Yellow River Valley region, not the rest of these where we had development. So go ahead and go ahead and through those 3 bullet points now, and go ahead and pause the video. Okay, we're back after your turn and talk discussion. Here on slide 12 we have the the Yellow River Valley civilization, or what we consider after many centuries China, the modern day country of China. So China develops out of this region here from the Yellow River Valley civilization. And then hopefully you guys talked about these rivers here. There's a bunch of other rivers here. Why didn't civilization develop there? Well, hopefully you guys went back to the geographically lucky things that we have been learning about. Perhaps they didn't have large domesticated animals as readily available nearby. Perhaps that you didn't have large seeded grasses. Perhaps that you just didn't have the right conditions on these rivers to develop big transportation networks, or the flooding that you needed to develop large-scale agricultural systems. So lots of reasons that are possible, and we'll continue to investigate that as we look at ancient China. Here we are, on to the next slide, slide 13 here in the bottom right. So go ahead and try to find the Yellow River on this map. So take a quick look here and see if you can find it. And hopefully you guys found it up here. Okay, so you have the Yellow River down here. What do the different colors mean on the map? See if you guys can have a quick look and find that. And if you didn't see it, it's down here on the left-hand side. So you have your darker oranges and your oranges being higher elevation, all the way on down here to 0 degrees or right at sea level. And then even this darker green is a depression, so it's actually below sea level in some areas if it's this darker green color. So with your Turn and Talk partner, use this information to modify your answer to the question, why now did civilization develop along the Yellow River and not some of the others? So does this map change how you guys thought about that? So go ahead and have a discussion about what this elevation how that might change your viewpoint. All right, so hopefully you guys had some time to think about it now. Now that we're talking about elevation, why the Yellow River Valley versus others? Well, here in the Yellow River Valley area, you have a lower elevation. So it's probably going to be a lot easier to farm and move around in a lower elevation. Higher elevations over here also probably have what in terms of climate? Cold temperatures. All right, they probably have colder temperatures. And so these sort of things may have changed that and not allowed people to develop civilizations around these areas here. All right, so we're going to zip on up to the next slide here now, slide 14. And here we're reviewing, let's see, defining and describing civilization, part 2. Below are the definitions we used in the last lesson to help us understand what a civilization meant. If you recall, we looked at this one initially, and then we also introduced this one. So we had 2 different definitions of a civilization. You're going to get a handout now, and it's going to be an expanded description of what a civilization means. So what I want you and your partner to do is, which one of these definitions below is closest to what is described in your handout. So let's take a look at the handout that you're going to just open up now in another window, or well, an Adobe Reader. So go ahead and open that up, and I will too. So here's your handout that you guys have in your materials. And so I want us to start looking through these descriptions here. So you have characteristics on the left and you have descriptions on the right. And so let's go ahead and read this together here. It says intensification. All right, so that might be a word we need to learn as well. Neolithic villages became larger and denser as populations grew. Architecture expanded and food surpluses were available. After 4000 BC, BCE, great changes occurred in cultural institutions. These changes occurred very quickly considering that humans had lived at foraging and small farming villages over 200,000 years before this. This process of change and growth in Era 2 is called intensification. Okay, so there it is. The process of change and growth is called intensification. A society did not have to have every characteristic to be a civilization, but below represents some general trends. So let's go through those. First characteristic is you need cities. Cities are large populations of over 30,000 people. Specialization you need. We've talked about this. Some people living in cities took full-time specialized jobs, artisans, merchant, soldier, priest, because they were supported by farmers from surrounding communities for their food, so they could do different things. You have a hierarchy system. A class system emerged where certain men and sometimes women held all the power. They were called elites. New word we're going to learn. Men began to dominate in politics and women became more responsible for life at home. This system is called patriarchy. Then you have the state. One city usually ruled over all others in a civilization. A king or a pharaoh with a small group of officials controlled the rest of society. Networks of trade is a characteristic. Many civilizations traded within and outside of their borders. Technology, food, and language spread from Mesopotamia outward to Egypt, India, and China. You also need technology. Technology changed much more rapidly than in Era 1. People developed metals like bronze and used those, what does that say? Metals like bronze in building things like wheeled carriages. Next, on to monuments. Large buildings were constructed like city walls, temples, palaces, and tombs for powerful rulers. You have spiritual belief and laws that could develop. Spiritual beliefs and laws became richer and more complex. And finally, you have creativity. Individuals worked with the ruling class to study astronomy, mathematics, sciences, and engineering. All right, so I'm going to take myself back to my slide here. So here we have the characteristics of civilizations and what they would have looked like in the river valley systems. So going on to slide 16 here, which of those characteristics that we just saw in the previous slide, slide 15, do we see here? So here we have Sumer in Mesopotamia, ancient Egypt. We have Mohenjo-Daro in the Indus River Valley, a city there, and the Yellow River in modern-day China. So looking at these pictures, which of these characteristics do we see? So if we go back here, which do we see? So you guys may be able to point out a couple. Maybe you mentioned technology, how technology may be evident there. Maybe you mentioned cities due to the building, and the building itself, monuments would at least be something that you most likely mentioned, or architecture that is shown here in these pictures that they had. All right, let's all go down to 17 now. Actually changed my mind. We're not going to go on to that slide just yet. What I would like you and your partner to do is to grab out handout number 2, Early Cities. So take a moment to get this open in Adobe. It should just be the next page after our characteristics one. And so this is a article adapted from Big History by a woman named Cynthia Stokes Brown. And the question we're asked here is, were these 4 societies civilizations? As you read, identify evidence that will help you answer this question and determine if they actually meet the criteria for civilizations that we went through here with these here. So do these actually meet the criteria? Let's do a historical investigation. So you and your partner are going to pause your video. I would like you to read through each of these. Each one's pretty short here. You got Mesopotamia, Sumer, Indus River Valley, onto Egypt and the Yellow River. And then after you've read those, you're going to scroll on down here to handout 3, which is your River Valley Civilizations Graphic Organizer. All right, so your job here is to go ahead and check out the characteristics on the left. You had the civilizations up here on the top. All right, guys, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to quickly model how I'd like you guys to go through this process here. I'm going to do it with Mesopotamia and Sumer with you. Okay, so I'm going to try to do this rather quickly. My video is running short on time, so we'll do this one together. I want you to highlight as you go the characteristics you find. So the name Mesopotamia actually means land between the rivers in ancient Greek. The society, also known as Sumer, is an ancient civilization of cities. So we know here that they have cities that develop on the Tigris and the Euphrates rivers over 5,000 years ago. The first of 8 Sumerian cities, okay, that's good to note, to develop was Uruk. Uruk had 2 major temples, okay, that's evidence of religious use. One was On, the sky god, another was Inanna, the goddess of love and protection. Each major city in Sumer was devoted to one or more gods. The Sumerians believed that gods resided in the temples they had built for them, so we have evidence of building projects. Sumerians believed in the 7 major gods and goddesses who formed a council that decided what would happen to people. The 4 gods were On and In, the air, water, and wisdom, and sun god. The 3 goddesses were earth, moon, and love and protection. People in Sumer ranked gods just like they were ranked when hierarchies appeared. So we have evidence of rankings under social hierarchies. The major gods lived in temples that formed large towers called ziggurats. Ooh, there we go. So that's one of those building structures. Over time, the cities of Sumer were united, so that we got a king, Sargon of the city Akkad, conquered the other cities, demolished walls, and appointed his sons as governors. Sumer was now ruled by one city, and its ruler controlled others, supported by scribes. Okay, evidence of a writing system, and priests, again, evidence of religion. Sargon's grandson, Naram Suen, declared himself a god. So there we go. What I've done is I've gone through and highlighted some of the things. Now let's take a quick super look at how you will fill in your chart. So here is my handout 3, River Valley Civilizations Graphic Organizer, how I would fill this one out, and this is your example for you guys to go on. Again, this is just going to be the basics. You don't have to get in super large detail here. Sometimes yeses and nos work. Just minor details. So dense population, I noted 8 large cities. Yes, they were agricultural. We know they all were. Cities, they had, again, 8 large ones. If they're mentioned in there, you could do that. Complex social hierarchy, levels of power. We had major temples, so that is some evidence that some were more important than others, and so on. Again, I'm out of time. I'll leave that on the screen there. You can certainly pause and go back, but you're going to go ahead and fill in the rest with your partners. Thanks.